Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today's video, we are going to be talking about the top 10 things that we have learned since we have taken our sabbatical here in Panama.
People are always asking us, what's different? What have we learned? How have we changed? And of course, this is something we talk about all the time. We've talked about at length, just different things we've noticed about ourselves, but also just the unlearning you kind of do. You realize the things that you've always believed or things you've held true for so long. And in 2 years, you start to realize the theme. So we just wanted to go through a list, we took some notes, so we're using that, but really kind of highlight the areas we feel that really stood out to us. And the first one is being that you can live with less. So I can live with less. More so, it was much easier for him before. I was the not much of a shopper, but I was a shopper between the two of us, and really just having things, just having things in your space, dealing with what you're going to bring with you. So when it's time to pack up, when it's time to get rid of things, you realize there's some stuff that you probably haven't seen or touched in over a year or more. So I was a little anxious, I guess, as to what do I bring? What do I bring clothes-wise? It was easy to get rid of cold weather stuff. We didn't need coats. We didn't need a lot of long sleeves and sweaters or any things like that. But the other stuff, like what's important to me, what do I want to bring to this new life? What do I want with me that is important, but will also bring me value? And you realize too, there's a lot of things you just don't miss. There's a lot of things that you're used to doing, you're used to getting that you either don't think about or you realize you don't need to have it. It was just there. It was convenience. So yeah, for me, that was an eye-opener after, and not even after that much time, like you realize okay, the first time we went back to the States, or I went back and went to our storage unit, we do keep a few things. It's even stuff in there, I'm like, oh, forgot. Yep, we saved this.
Forgot about
saved this. So yeah, we have to deal with that later on. So you can live with less, and it actually feels a lot better. The apartment we got here in Panama was already furnished, so it's nice mentally to know if we left, we don't have to deal with packing up a lot of stuff. We don't have to deal with selling so many things. We're packing up our clothes, the things we brought, and that's pretty much it.
Yes, it's easy for us to move. And now we know that when we make a purchase, we kind of pause and ask the question of, how much use am I going to get out of this? Is it something that I really need, or is it just something for convenience? And, is it something that, okay, for the convenience, I'll purchase now just to use it, but I know I'm not going to take it with me once I leave.
Right.
So it's all about being mindful of the purchases that you make and really keeping in mind, okay, am I going to get quality use out of it?
Right. So the second one is healthcare. This is a big one for us, and one of those where it was more of kind of unlearning what we've always known to be true. So I think a lot of people, us included, people we know, family, friends, a lot of people were wondering and asking about, what are you going to do with healthcare? How are you going to handle insurance? What happens if whatever? And not that we weren't worried or thinking about that, we definitely did. That was definitely one of the things one of the categories we were saving for. We want to make sure that's included for general wellness stuff, general checkups, things that we knew were going to get done on an annual basis. But we've been bamboozled, y'all. I don't know how else to really say it, but it's such a different experience to not have to wait if you need to get seen, to make an appointment, and that appointment's for the next day or within a couple of days, to get your test results almost immediately, within 24 hours. Yeah, some days, same day sometimes. And this is everything from blood work to MRI results and things like that, where you're not waiting weeks or waiting for a doctor to get back to you. Communicating directly with doctors, they follow up directly with you. WhatsApp is regularly used here, a lot of places outside the States, but definitely here in Panama. And being able to make an appointment via WhatsApp with maybe their assistant or them, but you know that you're going to be talking directly with them and not through a number of different people.
I think another thing that surprised me is that I take medication for a thyroid condition. And I could never do this back in the States, at least while we were living there, but I can go to a pharmacy and get my thyroid medication with just the name, even just a picture on my phone of my prescription, and they will give it to me. Here in Panama, it's very easy to get your prescription as long as it's non-narcotic. You don't need to go to a doctor first, set an appointment, pay a copay, have them write or type something out, then go to the pharmacy that is all cut out.
Straight to the pharmacy.
Right. And I found that to be just wonderful because now I can go get the medication that I need and I don't have to worry about jumping through hoops to get something that I already need to have.
Right. And that's with most medications. As long as it's something that you can generally find at most, you can take a picture, you can take the empty container, a box, you can even just describe what you're looking for and they will help. The prices, depending on what it is, they can be about the same or even cheaper. And even throughout Latin America, we've gone to other Central American countries and it's the same thing. You can go to almost any pharmacy, get what you need. But there are some things that they're important or they just may not have yet, so they will be a little bit more expensive.
Right. Number 3 on the list is how to slow down. And this is something that was new for me in different stages. Coming from Chicago, it's a blue collar city. It's the hustle and bustle of just everyday life. You have to be somewhere getting something done. You have to be moving. You have to be shaking. You have to be out in the world just making things happen. And one thing that I've learned, especially here in Panama, is that you need to take time to just breathe, walk around the neighborhood, talk to your neighbors, sit in the park, watch the birds, or go to the waterfront, all the things that Panamanians do. But they really take time to enjoy life when they have free time. If they go to dinner, they don't rush you out of the tables to try to turn it over for the next customers. You can sit there and you can actually eat, you can have a chat, you can have coffee, you can do everything. They're not going to be pushing you to move. And this shows in a lot of other areas with Panamanians, and I've learned a lot to just take time, just sit, breathe, and relax.
And for me, the way this showed up was my life back in Atlanta. I was on the move a lot. Socially, work was busy, but socially, and I loved it. Yeah, I don't mind going out. I don't consider myself an extrovert. I kind of consider myself a social introvert at times. And just, being with my friends, going out, meeting for coffee, going to brunch, going to dinner, things like that, you got used to it. It was part of your daily routine and you don't realize how much you are constantly going.
Right.
So coming here, we knew right away, people would ask, like, what are you going to do? Like, when you going to do when you get there? And nothing. The first 6 months, the plan was to do absolutely nothing. We desperately needed to just rest, to just kind of sit down. And it was hard at first. It really was strangely hard to not feel guilty about not being productive, having something to do constantly. But after literally a couple of months, it was fine. It's like, this is what I needed. I needed to sit down. You realize how much you were busy and on the move all the time. You think you're doing things to take care of yourself, but you realize just how fast-paced we are as Americans, whether it's just walking down the street or just the busyness, the everyday busyness of life. And just really be intentional with our time, how we're spending our time, who we're spending our time with, and the art of nothingness at times is wonderful to just really take it easy. And one thing we do really appreciate about Panamanians, they have a good balance between work and between enjoying their life and their family and friends. And that's one of the things that we've really picked up. That one ties into these next two. And number 4 is big for me. And that is my relationship with work completely changing. I left the tech sector. I worked in the people space. So you can think HR, but kind of HR adjacent. And the last few years, I was completely burned out. A lot of people got burned out, especially starting in 2020, working from home, getting promoted. There's just a lot of things, as workers in America, you are taught to kind of strive for certain things. You go to school, you get a good job, you try to make money, you buy things to show, where you're at in your life. And it's that constant hustle. It's the constant hustle culture. You might have side businesses. I had a small business before.
Yes.
You're doing other things. You are just constantly going. And it's always about that next payday, that next check, the next promotion, all of that. Stepping out of that, you realize there's things that just aren't as important to me. Of course, we need to work to make money. We need to live. But I don't have that same desire to be in the thick of so much because I recognize what it did to me. I was mentally and physically and emotionally drained in so many ways, burned out in so many ways. And it was hard for me to see the things that were really important to me, the things that I wanted to do in my life. I had no mental energy for. I couldn't even think, towards the end, like what's important to me because I had nothing left to give anything. And this was one of the biggest things for us to want to take a break was what's next? We can't be spending our time in our life like this. Like, I don't think that we are born to just work to pay bills, to just work to work, and everything becomes work related. You're with your friends, you're with coworkers, you're talking about work, you're talking about what's happened at work. You are preparing to go to work. Everything's kind of centered around that. And I know too many people too who also, a lot of their personality and who they are is about what they do.
Exactly.
And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but coming out of that, you really see just how much American culture, so much is centered around work. I mean, the fact that healthcare is tied to our jobs. You cannot properly take care of yourself if you're not working, quote unquote, a good job. So leaving that, we want to be in situations and in workspaces where, one, we're not running ourselves ragged, for somebody else's gain, no more, right? But two, we feel good about the work we're doing. So approaching work going forward, the way I look at it is just different. I don't have that same desire to just completely run myself to the ground and do everything above and beyond. Of course, I know that I have a great work ethic, but I'm not going to bust myself to my own detriment for somebody else's business. I'm just not doing it. I have no desire to do it. And more so, I want a healthier balance between what I put into work versus what's most important to me and what goes on in my personal life. The time I spend with my family, my friends, my husband, that's far more important to me. And if I am burning myself out and I'm sick or whatever because of the stresses of work, what's the point of the money you're making? What's the point of all of that if you can't even enjoy it?
And I think for myself, I had to unlearn a certain mentality that was passed down to my parents, from my grandparents, and from their parents. And it's the blue collar mentality of the Midwest, specifically for me, Chicago. It may have changed since I've left, but growing up and spending my formative years in Chicago in my early adult years, the mindset that was passed down from the older generation was if you have time, you should be working. If they have overtime for you, you should be working it. If you have time to get a second job, you should get it because, it was a mindset of you never know what might go wrong.
Right.
So you want to stack up as much money. You stack up your food for the wintertime. And it was a thing of you'll rest when the work is done. And the work may not be done until you're 60, 70, 80, but it was expected of you to just work and work and work. Even if it became available on the weekends, what are you resting for? You'll rest when you're dead. That was always the phrase. And just having to unlearn that and really think about what is more important in life. It was a time where I was spending more time with my coworkers than I was with my wife. And I did not like that. We're passing each other throughout the day as far as our schedules being different. And then, when the weekend comes, we have a few hours where we can hang out and we have to crunch everything in. But then for the next 5 days, we're just passing like strangers because she has to go to work, I have to go to work, then she has to go to sleep, I have to go. We had a very short amount of time together and I just did not like that. So removing the idea of hustle culture, which was number 5.
Yeah, and I guess we can go right into that because these are so tightly related.
Yes.
Our relationship with work and how we view it has changed. It shifted. and then recognizing the extreme hustle culture of America, period. So yeah, what you described, just constantly having to get the money, get the overtime, having side businesses, do this, and just the idea and the need that you can have a hobby or you can love something, and people's next thing is, you should sell this, you should make a business, you should do this. And it's like, if I did that, then it's not going to be fun to me anymore. It's not going to be it's work. And yes, you could do that. Yes, you could probably make money, and there's, again, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Because stack your money. You definitely you need money. We need money to live. But there has to be a better balance between that and knowing when you need to just enjoy the now. And I think that's it. Living in the now, you can prepare for what's to come, but it may not come, you know? So even just with us making the decision to pull the trigger and do this right now, I knew that we would not regret taking this adventure. If we didn't do it and we kept working, kept going, we probably would regret it. You know, the opportunity might have passed, and that's something I would have regretted. So getting out of that, I just have no desire for the hustle. No. Anymore at that level, I just have no desire. I want and require a lot more peace. I want and require a lot more ease, you know, these days. And that's what we've gained, I guess. And seeing it, I feel like I could go back into a situation a lot differently.
And we've learned the value of time.
Right.
You know, we understand that money is needed to live, and you have to work to earn money. But we now see that living a simpler life makes everything a lot easier, because just being a little bit more intentional with your money and with your time can make life a whole lot better.
Right. And the hustle culture ties into, I think, the overconsumption too. Right. Because usually when you are making more money, you spend more money, and we had good jobs. Like, I had a great job. People would probably look at that like, you left this. It's like, it got to the point, and I've done it before. It can get to the point where it doesn't matter how much you're making. It could get to the point it doesn't matter how good the place may be, your coworkers, whatever. If you aren't happy, that's what's going to constantly stick out. And that's where it got to that. It's like, and I used to be more like this. It's like, okay, I'm making this now, I can do these things. Right. You keep leveling up your spending and your consumption, and then you have to keep working to maintain that.
Build your life.
So yeah, you build your life around your income, and you know, it's harder to not have that. So if the job goes away, whether you're laid off or you leave or whatever happens, it's almost this desperate scramble. You have to replace that, because now you have this house. Now you have these things that need, right. And we didn't really want that. After a while, I was like, I don't want that for myself. I tried to be good when the money came to make sure we're saving or make sure we're doing something and not just spending. But those two are tied hand in hand, and it's hard for some, and I recognize and can see, it's hard for people to imagine something else when they think, well, I have this and I have this. How am I going to do all this and do this if I have these things? I have these bills. I have something I have to pay for. I have these responsibilities. And that's the stuff we had to unlearn and shift. It's like, is that really important to me in my life? Can I forgo certain things temporarily or permanently, whatever it might be, to live the way we want to live?
And number 6 on the list is us recognizing that we were in a constant state of low-level anxiety when we were living in the United States. I myself am from Chicago, and just being born and raised in a major city, I didn't realize just how much I had become numb to, and just really didn't see in my everyday life. And it wasn't until I got here to Panama that I realized people move about as they should. You know, you can walk around and not have to worry about anything happening to you or someone trying to hurt you. Here in Panama, I've seen women walk around after midnight by themselves, and they're very comfortable walking around the city. And that's one thing that I try to gauge wherever we go, whether we're visiting or considering a place to live, is it safe for women to walk around by themselves any time of the day? And this is a place that really shows you just how much of that anxiety you carry with you in your body, how tense you are, how on guard you are. And it's just nice to finally be away from that and see a different side of life where you can be a little bit more relaxed and flowing with the way your day is going.
This was huge. you realize the things you put down, I guess, and the things that we actually carry, one, as Americans, two, as Black Americans. Racial violence, the tension, political stuff, unnecessary random violence, just the things that you are constantly aware of in your day-to-day life. And you probably don't realize you're moving about your regular life kind of tense.
Right.
And you might realize it. And just the stuff we're bombarded
Oh,
with,
God.
the constant school stuff, just all of it. You know, we were hearing something all the time, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. It seemed
Right.
like it was nonstop. And it was getting to the point where even just where we lived in the city, just hearing, you know, you hear, is that a
Right.
firework or is that a gunshot?
Is it something else?
Constantly, you know, just constantly going to get gas, you know, making sure you're aware of who's around. I can't go to this gas station, I need to go here. Can't walk anywhere after a certain time, you know, just all of that. And it's things that you don't always think about. Not saying any place, any city, especially Panama City included, is 100% safe. There are
Right.
definitely neighborhoods you shouldn't be in. Of course, there's violence, but it's not the same way. And there's not a culture of guns and gun violence. So I'm not walking around or going out with that mindset, or this person might do this, you
Right.
know, or I can't do this or say this because this might happen. I don't feel the same tension coming across cops or making sure, you know, I straighten up or anything like that. It's just not the same. And even hearing Chuck say, I think it was the first year we were here, coming from a city like Chicago, knowing what his upbringing was like, and for him to say he can look at cops and know that they're minding their business. You know,
I feel safe around
they
cops
feel
for the
safe. Like
first time.
they're here to actually protect the neighborhood, patrol the neighborhood. We don't even see them too much in our area. It's just not the same. And now Panama's got their own their own little corruption with their cops and stuff, but it's just different. And that's something that's been such a relief. You realize almost immediately the things that you are not thinking about anymore on the same level. Of course, having family and friends in the States still, I think about stuff, you know, for them and what they're
Right.
experiencing. But coming out of that, our nervous system is a lot more relaxed.
Right.
And we definitely notice it when it's time to go back to visit. The first time I went back to visit, I was telling him, I just felt so anxious. I
Right.
didn't know why. I felt so anxious.
Just the anticipation.
Yeah, the anticipation, the not knowing, is like you got so used to it,
Right.
being in there. It was your normal. And realizing that should not be normal at
No,
all.
it should not.
At all. So very grateful for
Yes.
that one. Number 7, when you do something like this, where you step away or you have now an abundance of time, time means space. Time means things are going to pop up from when you were 8 years old, or when you were 18 and you remember you said that one stupid thing, or this happened at your job 10 years ago. And what really mean by that is your mind's going to clear.
Right.
The cobwebs are going to kind of clear up. Things you have not thought about in a long time are going to come up. And really, it's a way to assess, reassess, to reconcile, to heal, to think about stuff that's probably shaped you, and realize there's things that probably happened. You didn't realize how much it affected you.
Right.
And I think we've both kind of gone through that and realized, okay, these things happen, or this pattern is here. I recognize that now with myself,
Right.
or recognizing things with each other. You know, we know each other very well, but the last 2 years have strengthened our friendship. You know, this
Right.
is my first friend here. Like, this is who I'm spending a lot of time with in a different way. We're going through so many new things together.
Right.
So time gives you space to relearn yourself and relearn who you're with, what makes you happy, what makes you upset, what brings stress and anxiety, situations that might bring stress and anxiety,
Right.
and how to just kind of help each other through that. We've definitely gotten to know each other a bit more, but more importantly, we've gotten to know ourselves a lot more. And for me too, just dealing with things that had probably happened in my childhood or past, and realizing, oh, okay, I can put this down.
Right.
You know, I didn't think it was an issue, or didn't think it was a problem, but I can put this down now.
And I think the most important thing for me that has happened since we've taken the sabbatical is, for lack of better terms, just an inner healing. that thing that happened in 2020 was rough for everyone. And like a lot of people around the world, we both experienced losses. And even this past year, just to date this is 2024. In 2023, I lost 3 family members. And the one thing that I realized was that if I were still at a job with the hustle mindset that we mentioned earlier, I kind of would distract myself from grieving. I would grieve, for who knows, maybe a month, maybe 2 months, but then I would throw myself into work or into something fun, something that is a distraction. What I've learned here with having time is that, as Tamara said, some of those thoughts, some of those feelings, some of those emotions, they start to bubble up, especially being in a different country where you're away from your tribe, you're away from your family. The holidays come around and they start to mean something different when you see, especially here, where families get together in such huge groups and they sing and they cook food and they walk around the neighborhood together. They do everything as one unit, one tribe. And, if you've had losses in your life, that can kind of bring up some emotions where it's like, okay, I thought I dealt with this and I haven't dealt with it. It doesn't matter how old it is. It can still come up to where you may need to deal with it. Or like Tamara said, something from your childhood that just is still a little pin, in your side. Just, why does this still bother me? You can take time to really look at yourself and be like, okay, why am I feeling this way? You can ask all the questions that you need to ask yourself in order to figure out who you were, who you are, and get an idea of who you want to be.
Number 8 is community and really seeing that in action. I think for both of us, of course, you have your friend groups, you build community with your own people, your tribes, but coming to a place like Panama, they seemed to us to really embody the word community.
Yes.
From where you live, the building we live in, to the neighborhood, to the town, the city, there's always something going on. The parks, there's usually parks in most of the neighborhoods. Once the sun goes down, and the sun has to go down here,
yes,
the neighborhood comes alive. There's people in the parks, they are gathering, they are walking their dogs, they are walking their kids, tiring out their kids. And you see all the little groups everywhere. You've got the emo goth kids, you got the skateboarders, you have the calisthenic bros, as he calls them, the just everything. They constantly have little markets and festivals. If Panama's playing in a soccer tournament, football tournament, they're playing on the big screen in the neighborhood. Like, there is a true neighborhood community feel. And we noticed that immediately, like from week 1 being here. And it's the main reason we picked the neighborhood we live in, which is El Cangrejo, and just something we love and something that's kept us here. And seeing that, I have not really felt that sense of community since probably when I was a kid. My dad was military, so we got that living on different bases. Of course, you're in an area where it's just it's just America. It's just military families and things like that. So holidays kick up. People are doing things together. You look out for each other. But we didn't really, I guess, sense that or have that in Atlanta outside of our friend groups. We didn't really know our neighbors. It's just very, very different. And it's a nice feeling here. You feel you can trust people a little bit more. People speak to each other. It's customary here. You don't get on an elevator. You don't walk into a building or a space and there's people there and you not speak at all. We're used to that, just period. You walk in, buenas. You greet people. And so it's very great to see. Love it.
And I think the one thing that I loved, well, not one, but a couple of things. One was around Christmas time, after the families have eaten their meals, they've opened up their presents, they gather up at the park, one, to show off the presents that they got that year, but also to still commune and see what everyone else has gotten as far as their presents. What did you get your kids? What did your spouse get you? And things. It's still they don't stay in the house like Americans where you open up your presents and then, you're on the couch with, belly full of food and watching the game, but they go out and still talk to each other during the holidays. And another special thing that happened last year in our building, we have musicians on different floors. They actually came together to give us a little concert in the lobby area of our building. Some were, from what I understand, were professional musicians, and some were kind of hobbyist amateur, but they were good enough to play the same songs, and they did it just for the building, just for free,
Right.
because they wanted to.
Right.
It's the things that Panamanians do, they do for the community. They love to share and be with each other. And that's something that I never had in Chicago or in Atlanta. It was pretty difficult to kind of build that type of community with people that you can trust, that you knew had your best interest at heart.
Number 9, something that we talk about a lot with each other, living here in Panama, but also traveling around the region. We've met
Right.
a lot of great people. We've seen a lot of beautiful places. And despite the problems that America has, we are absolutely grateful and very lucky to be born where we were born.
Right.
No one can control that. Where they're born, what they're born into. We're very grateful to be U.S. citizens, to have U.S. passports, because we recognize what that means. And you realize that a lot more when you leave the borders. Of course, especially being Black Americans living in the U.S., we know what that comes with. We know what the history, we know what we deal with, have dealt with on a day-to-day. But when you leave the States, people, of course, are going to see you as Black-facing, of course. But the minute you open your mouth, you're American.
Right.
And that comes with a lot of privileges I think some people don't realize, because you hear the word privilege and you think something else. You think that's not you or that's not us. And it is absolutely you. It is us. If you are a U.S. citizen. That's not to say that people don't struggle within our own country, that, people aren't trying to make their own way or dealing with their own stuff. But if you travel, if you're lucky enough to be able to travel and to go outside of the U.S., being American can come with some privileges, and we're just really grateful that, one, it's allowed us to work a job where we were able to save enough to do something like this, number one. And number two, to be welcomed in spaces where we can still be ourselves and interact with people and learn the culture, even though this is my family's, my family's country as well, but traveling around and doing things and feeling safe, but also recognizing we're very lucky to be doing this.
And that's why we try to be very intentional about supporting the local economy, supporting local businesses, local entrepreneurs, because it's very easy to move here and kind of get in your own bubble and find the U.S. retiree who opened up a little corner store or a bar or maybe a little, small bites restaurant. But it's much better with the privilege that we have to support the local community so that they can, for some, stay above water.
Right.
Because one thing that is obvious here is, and throughout Central and some of South America from where we visited, is that these countries don't have the culture of hustle your way out of it. There just aren't the opportunities here for people to just say, okay, I'm just going to work hard. I'm just going to hustle. I'm going to start this business. Some businesses don't have, the clientele, so they have to work whatever is available. So being here, it's only right to support the local economy.
So we think it's important too, if you're considering doing something like this, if you are considering moving to another country, being aware of what your presence may mean. So making sure you are supporting local everything when you can, from businesses to tour companies to restaurants, whatever that might mean. We've been to places where there are so many, you can say expats, we're immigrants. There's so many immigrants who come and they're opening tour companies and restaurants and businesses, and that's fine, that's great. But it changes the dynamic of the area. It changes the economy. It makes things a bit harder for the people who actually live there and who've been trying to make a living. So we can go home and support Americans all day long. We still shop Amazon. And we still, do things, but we're here in the space and we want to make sure that we add in a positive way. And there's just one thing we kind of challenge people who are thinking of doing the same thing, is just really be considerate, and be a good expat, be a good immigrant, and make sure that you are using your privilege in a positive way. So the last one is us as a couple, but also individually redefining what success, what happiness looks like to us.
Right.
For a lot of us, and I think a lot of people can relate to this, it seems like there's this unwritten rule book to how your life should be going. You go to school, you may or may not go to college, you get married, you get a job, you have kids, you buy a house, like all these things should be happening. And these are the milestones of life, and they define whether you're successful or not. No, it does not have to be that way. And if you don't have any of those things, it doesn't mean you're a failure. That doesn't mean that you're not successful. It ends up putting so much pressure and so much stress on people, especially women, when it comes to the things you should be doing with your life. And you don't have to feel that way. You should not have to feel that way. There should be other examples of what a healthy, a successful, a happy life could look like.
Right.
And we just wanted to kind of step out of that, because I think for both of us, we've never felt the need to do certain things. I have to have this because this is what's expected, or I need to do this. And I don't like feeling like I'm living my life for other people.
Right.
We're big ages right now. We didn't want to do that anymore. So taking this and doing this was very important to us. And this is one of the bigger things we've walked away with is, what makes us happy? You know, what do we see as success? It's not as tied into work any longer. You know, it can look like so many different things, and really just showing up, being a good person, helping other people, being good to each other. And spending time with each other, spending time with our family, all of that ties into what we want and what we want to see more of.
Right. And we've also learned that anything else that we want to experience in life is just for us. Again, we recognize our privilege in life, but it's just about planning. And, if we agree on it, it's like, let's see. We're not just going to count it out. We're going to take some time and do some research and, make a move that is the most beneficial for us. And we see some families here in Panama who have moved to different countries with their children because they want to expose them to different cultures and different cuisines and make sure that they are worldly successful people or worldly happy people, instead of just having the culture that is from their state or their city or their town back in the States. They want to expose them to as much as possible. And some of their families were not supportive of them leaving the States because of their own fears. But they decided, okay, I'm not going to listen to what you are afraid of. I'm gonna take this chance and see, how it turns out, because you can always go back. Mm-hmm. But there is no puzzle where, as long as you put the pieces in there, this is what a happy life looks like. Right. It's different for everybody. Right. You may be a person who simply just wants to sit by the beach. Someone else may want to go to a bustling city like New York or Paris or something like that. You can do all of that. Mm-hmm. Again, it takes planning, it takes time, but worrying about what other people may think as far as your success, or if they're counting your pockets or things like that, we've learned to just let that go and just ask one question: will this make us happy?
Right. And truly, honestly, you're the only person that needs to be okay with things. Right. Nobody else. People are always going to have their own opinions or their own thoughts, but nobody is living your life except for you. So one thing you said too, and I say this all the time, it's like, you can live many lives. You do not have to be stuck doing the same thing if you're not happy with it. You can do something different. You can try something new. This is what it's for. Of course, we need to work to live and survive and do things. We have responsibilities. But if anything, what this has taught us, and what we hope more people can take from this, is that do some of the things that really bring you joy, whatever that might mean. It may be taking a break, it may be traveling somewhere, but it might be something on a local level for you. Leaving work at the time you should be leaving, to be able to engage in things that give you more of a balance.
So that is our list of the 10 things that we have learned so far on our sabbatical. I hope this has helped someone, make a decision on taking a sabbatical, even if it's just a sabbatical at home. Mm-hmm. We were fortunate enough to go to another country to take ours, but it's perfectly fine to just set your life up to just stay home and rest if you need to, and, not be out ripping and running all the time. So if this has helped you, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
Bye.